You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Vanazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody. That rockin' tune means it's time for a rockin' show. At least we like to think so. Yes, it's time for the option block. My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-excited Options Insider Radio Network. You guys may have noticed, some guys you've been asking us to do this, so we finally got it done for you. We went through today and updated all of the web players there on the old mothership, the OptionsInsider.com. So some of you are asking for this and for that. We went through new players in there so you could listen to all the shows really easily, choose your different episodes, all that fun stuff. So for all of you guys who've been asking for that, we got that. Also got our Twitter up there on the homepage. I know it's taken a while for us to do that too, catching up to 2013 in that sense, but we moved that on up there as well. So you guys are asking for that, so we made a few tweaks to the website just for you guys. If you haven't been over there in a little while, you mostly focus on the radio side or on the social media side, head on over, theoptionsinsider.com. Got some cool new stuff I think you're going to like, and there's always more coming down the road, so stay tuned for that. Speaking of staying tuned, you can always tune in with us live Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern via ye old Mixlr, MIXLR. You guys know how to grab it, so if you're around, you want to listen, we'd love to see you in there. Stay tuned to the network this week as well. A lot of good stuff hitting it. Like I said, the big FIA show was last week, so a lot of interviews have been percolating through and other shows we recorded last week, so stay tuned. We'll keep you busy, even busier than usual, with all the great content we put together last week. And I'll make sure, however you listen, live after the fact, via the app, via the website, however you get it, hit us up. Questions, comments, insights. We do like to hear from you folks. All right, and joining me on the old program today, let's go backwards around the dial. Let's start usually he's in that sleepy hamlet known as St. Charles. These days on Mondays, who knows what he's up to over there. He's moving and shaking, rocking and rolling somewhere out there west, shall we say, of Chicago. We are joined by Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisors. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show, sir.
Always happy to be here, even when it's a little bit gloomy out in the weather. It's always a sunny day on the option block.
Well, see, that's your first mistake. You left the weather shield of St. Charles, so now you're exposed to regular October weather like the rest of us schmoes, sir. So that was your first mistake. Poor effort, poor mistake on your part. And also joined joined from somewhere out there in the western environs. We shall find out exactly where shortly. We are also joined from the proverbial pool house by Mr. Matt Tubby Benson, the options man about town, though I'm getting a hint, perhaps maybe not for much longer. Mr. Tubbinator, welcome back to the show, sir.
Good to be back, Mark. It's not often I get to sit in the pool house in a full sweatshirt and pants. That's not the way I designed it, but we are coming live from the pool house. And yeah, we're probably a couple of days. We're in that minutia stage where sooner or later, once we get a few things cleared up, hopefully we'll be able to come clean with what's going on.
You're being uber secretive, sir. I ran even into your brother. Yes, there is another tub floating around out there. And he said you won't even tell him what's going on. So being super secretive, I look forward to your announcement that you are joining the CIA forthwith, sir. And last but not least, joining us from another undisclosed location. Let us find out. He is the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the show, sir.
Good to be here. Yeah, I'm right in the neighborhood as well. I'm down the street from Matt, but I am at my own abode as opposed to hanging out of doors. I'm actually out of doors, but I'm just not at Matt's house out of doors. And it's there's this weird thing on my trading screen today, Mark. I don't know what it is.
Are you referring to double digits out there? Can you not handle that?
There's some red. I mean, there's this color red that I've never seen before.
Oh, the other side.
At least I don't remember it. And I can't seem to figure out what is that color. I mean, what does it represent? Does that mean is that stocks that are up, like, they're missing an extra 1 digit for how much they're up? So instead of being up 0.5%, or they're actually up 55% or something like that. Is that what that means? Because I don't know what this red color is.
That means you have to double down on all of your buys, because if you loved it on Friday, then you got to love it even more right now. Yes, red on the screen, green on the old VIX screen, double digits in VIX land, all kinds of craziness. Let's get to it. Time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. Like the man said, the portion of the show we break down what's trading. And as the Meatball alluded to, a lot of red on the screen today. Not a wipeout by any means, but certainly, given our recent frame of reference, where it's pretty much been all green all the time, any bit of red on the screen is alarming to all the bulls out there. I know Uncle Mike is silently weeping to himself right now here on the old show. Most of the major indices closing off on the day. S&P off about 0.4%. The Dow, a bit of the laggard to the downside, only off about 0.25% or so. And the tech-heavy NASDAQ leading the charts to the downside, as usual, off nearly 0.75 percentage point out there. All that red means a little bit of green on the old VIX cash screen today. Back into the double digits, closing right around 1075. Let's see, we flirted, didn't get quite over the 11 handle today. Flirted with it though, got about 1088 or so on the upside. So nice about a one handle range out there in VIX land today. So all of you said this can't possibly get back up into the double digits, at least for today. At least we shall see. I would personally like to see a little bit of easing, so we can get into the nice crystal ball for Friday. But then I'm getting ahead of myself. We got a whole week of trading before we can worry about such madness. Speaking of things that are worrying, like I said, or perhaps interesting, depending on your point of view, it is, of course, earnings season. Lots of things are popping off. Unfortunately, not a lot popping off after the bell for us today. Usually like to sink our teeth into a bunch of things. We got good old Chipotle coming out tomorrow. We got a few others, a.k.a. the formerly stealth Apple. I don't really know what to call them. Not much about stealthy about Chipotle anymore. They're more just about the next shockwave of salmonella or whatever else is rocking them at this point. Mickey D's also before the open tomorrow. Some interesting stuff. Today, after the bell, I got Whirlpool and a couple others. Logitech, if you're out there really into components, PC peripherals, then Logitech will have you glued to your screens. But mostly, it's really kicking off later this week. Of course, on Thursday, we got a lot of the A's in the fangs. We got Amazon, we got Alphabet, we've got Microsoft, we got good old Intel, talking about Intel a lot lately on the show. All of them popping off after the bell on Thursday. And of course, Uncle Mike's favorite, Buffalo Wild Wings. That's on Wednesday, though, so don't get confused with that. Uncle Mike, when you're not weeping over the red on the screen and you're not just salivating over the impending announcement of Buffalo Wild Wings earnings, what else is catching your eye in today's activity, sir?
Hey, I'll eat me some B-dubs anytime. I love that place. Yeah, today one thing to just keep in mind is that it's such a major event in that we have red on the screen. I mean, Mark kind of hit the nail on the head. We really have not had a lot of that lately. We're down by less than 0.5%. So one thing that always interests me and I hate to call it the new market, but the market of higher numbers that we have over the last 7 or 8 years is that 100 points on the Dow or 10 points on the S&P isn't really as big of a deal as it once was because of the fact that it's not as big of a percent as it once was. So it's one thing to keep in mind as we're looking at this market. From a macro level, it looks like last night it seemed like the market and the futures, it seemed like it was a positive reaction last night and a little bit this morning to the Prime Minister of Japan getting elected and reelected. And his big thing is that he wants to rewrite the Japanese constitution so they can have military force. But the reality of it is that Japanese people seem to be kind of divided on whether they want that to happen or not. So I'm not convinced it's going to happen over there. We'll see, but I think that was probably the biggest major news that was going on overall. So I think it could be possible, maybe, that the market might just be pulling back a little bit from positive earnings, and we might just be reacting to, I hate to say it, it's kind of a scary thing because it's such a foreign thing to us. The market might actually be reacting to how well or how poorly companies are actually doing as opposed to crazy events. I know it's kind of a foreign concept to everyone that's been in the market the last few years, but maybe that's actually happening. I'm not sure. So I thought that was interesting. Excited to hear Mark's take on the VIX for today and how things were going with that. And, other than that, in gold and silver, things were relatively flat. And that is the two-saw rundown for what I saw today.
Stay tuned for some silver. We had some, had a listener send in some stuff for you on the silver front, Uncle Mike. We'll get to that in a little bit on the old odd block. But first, let's go out to the pool house. Let's see what's been cooking in the soon-to-be CIA analyst, the Tubinator. Mr. Tubinator, what's catching your eye here as we're kicking off earnings season, sir?
Oh, fun stuff. I love the micro much more than the macro. And just to touch base on a couple of little mistakes that I try not to make, and I did, and they proved costly to me last week. There's times that we talk about sometimes whether we'll piggyback certain stocks or positions, whether we'll take some stuff on it. I've long held it's easier to go a little bit further out than where people are kind of looking to load up on positions, because somebody may know something a little more than you, so why don't I buy a little more time? And I failed in 3 instances over the weekend with some numbers this morning. An October Tesla position that I had the 45-30 put spread on, that this morning, had it been November, that would have looked really nice. ARNC that we talked about 2 weeks ago, jumping on the October 28 calls that someone bought. But then we noticed the next day people buying November 28 for about a dime more. Now, while that stock did get hit today by about $2.5, they did make an announcement changing their CEO this morning as opposed to last Friday. The stock was up about $0.50 on the opener this morning, so being long the Oak 28 would have paid off far better than letting the Oct 28 expire. And my least favorite of the week was DBVT, which we talked about piggybacking. Someone bought some no 50-60 call spreads, but then also an October 30-35 put spread. And of course, I thought October was a great idea as well. Not so much. This morning, that stock opened about $26 lower. So that Oct 45 put that I decided that expired and I paid $3 for, had it been no, would have been about $25 on the opening this morning. So 3 little tricks for the trade. If you're following what you think to be smarter money but aren't really sure, buy yourself some time, spread it off, make it a little bit cheaper, and you'll be a lot happier.
Yeah, we've said it many times here on the old show. The size money, not always the smart money, but there's some wisdom there if you want to follow along. You don't really know the time frame. Because you're right. I'm looking at good old DBVT is the ticker symbol, listeners. This is, of course, DBV Technologies. First, I thought I had the wrong one here, Matt, when I pulled it up, because wait a minute, wasn't this a much more expensive stock? And it was just yesterday or just a few days ago, because off today, taking it on the chin, closing today 28.32 or so, off 41% or just shy of $20, and it got down as low as 22.33. So it was another 6 handles lower than where it is right now. So ugly stuff out here in good old DBVT. I haven't been watching this one. Was this just an earnings smackdown? What caused all that sell-off there, Matt?
There was a phase 3 trial on a peanut allergy vaccine that failed.
Failed phase 3. That's what all these fun biotechs, they live and they die by the FDA and their trials. And it sounds like this one on the latter side of that equation. Yeah, you're right. Those puts would have been juicy. Just another couple of days there, sir. And last but not least, as we go around the horn here, sirs, I think he's safely ensconced in his office there by now. Mr. Meatball, what was cooking in your neck of the woods this week aside from this rare double-digit VIX?
Yeah, how crazy is that? We got an 11 VIX now. It's 11, going to be 11:10. That's because after the bell we got a little bit additional movement. We saw no futures are back up to 1180. Interesting that the VIX is 1110 and the no future is only about 1180. So, we've gone from a scenario where, meaning the VIX futures are only up about 50 cents. Meaning we've gone from an area where futures are hyper reactive and are super, super wide to now everyone's just meaing the bananas out of thing. Part of me wonders whether we'd already seen a bunch of Vega slowly coming off the table as the VIX kind of hung around 9-ish and we had 7 weeks in a row of wins. I think maybe some of what we saw is probably just some cyclical money coming off the table. I mean, the names that got murdered were Amazon and Google and Facebook and Alibaba. And interestingly, IBM got smacked. But a lot of the names that people really like, other than Apple, the FANG names and some of the names that have performed really well out of earnings were the ones that got really smoked. Amazon in particular was down almost over $20. So the NASDAQ, the NDX, the NASDAQ 100 was clearly the laggard of the day. What I did notice was the Russell was kind of down on the open and, didn't really have a huge sell-off, but eventually we saw the NASDAQ say, oh, hey, Russell, you think that's all you can do? We can beat you. So that was interesting. We got a lot of earnings coming up, and then we have a lot of kind of interesting events, macro events, as Mike Tusaw was talking about. We've got kind of some, with Abe being elected, that's going to affect the Japanese yen, which I think is primed to go either significantly lower or retrench because it is right at that level. And another one is with I kept calling it cannelloni, which is a type of pasta filled with ricotta cheese and usually some sausage with a delicious marinara red sauce on top of it. But what I meant was Catalonia, and that is. There is a mess there, and that could really turn into a problem with in Europe if things escalate there. But I was looking around for some sort of headline as to why things kind of popped, and it just feels like traders are said, you know what, levels that we saw last Thursday we're perfectly comfortable with for today. The selling wasn't like there was a bunch of piling on. I mean. We were down 2, then we were down 3, then 6, then we kind of hung out, then we dropped to 10, and then we stayed there for the rest of the day. There was not any big selling end of day. There was not the high in the VIX futures was around 230, not at 3 o'clock as you would expect if there was a big rush. So part of me wonders whether there's already been some money taken off the table, and we've got some people just saying, "Hey, I'm ready to see the whole put up or shut up piece of this entire thing called earnings season."
It is nice to have some actual numbers on the table for a change. And you may be hungry for pasta now, there, Mr. Sebastian, after talking about Catalonia there. But yeah, Mr. What we got here? Follow the Money 2. He's listening to us talking about DBVT. We said it's looking ugly. He says, but look at the intraday chart. That's looking pretty nice, actually. Yeah, I guess it's all about frame of reference, right? If you ignore the massive annihilation that happened before they opened, then yes, intraday. It kind of looks all right. A little bit of a rally there. But again, all frame of reference. Maybe you loaded up on some calls early in the morning, then you got a smile on your face. In the case of the poor Tubinator, though, just a week too early. That's the challenge of options, right? They have that pesky thing called an expiration date. And you could be right on everything else if you're wrong on the time frame. That's all she wrote, unfortunately. A lesson I think we've all been there. So a worthwhile thing for us to explore. Speaking of exploring, let's explore some of the weird stuff that went on today. It's time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block. This is indeed the portion of the show where we break down weird, wild, wonderful, whimsical paper that is catching our collective eyes here on the old option block and indeed on the old optionsinsider.com. Check it out if you want to go. Obviously, we do UA throughout the week too, not just on this show, so head on over there throughout the week if we need a little bit more of your UA fix. Of course, follow us on social media, put a lot of the links out there. As well as kick things off as we are wont to do out there in the realm of the weirdness, aka these annihilation apocalypse, call them what your will puts, that continue to print and grow OI over there in Tesla land. Yes, the Jan 2019 50 puts. I don't know if the meatball has bought any yet for his Carmen line capital, but people out there continue to do so to the tune of only 28 today, a little light today. 178, though, the 75 is going up, which is kind of interesting. It's a little growing OI over there. But when it comes to OI, still number one with the bullet out there in Tesla. All you guys who are slinging weekly puts and everything else, all you guys who are doing all this other stuff, doesn't hold a candle to how much is open on these Jan 2019 50 puts. They're pushing 32,000 OI. This broke 30,000 a week or so ago, and they're already up to almost 32,000. 31,804. To be precise. So all of you who ask us, what is the big deal about these? They continue to trade. It's just the weirdest thing. So yes, weird stuff. 32,000 almost on the tape. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, as they say. What that means, really, I don't know. I can't really tell you. Everyone has their own theory as to what that is. But either way, it's weird. All right, Uncle Mike, put on your listening pants. Sir, I know you have different pants for all occasion. Time for the listening pants. Because we got this one sent in, actually. It was actually this morning. From our old friend there, the Flow Master, Mr. Henry Schwartz of Trade Alert infamy. You can also find what they do over there at whatstrading.com, listeners, if you want to more focus on the retail activity side of their fence. And he said, hey, I want to send this one in for Uncle Mike because I know he likes himself some silver. And what he sent us was some interesting call activity here in Fortuna Silver Mines, ticker symbol FSM. This one closing today, 461, up about a quarter of a handle, nearly 6%. Not a bad time here for Fortuna. In fact, I think you wanted to know if this was your paper here, Uncle Mike. This is the name that does, about 1,500 contracts a day, doing about 13,000 and change today, about 191 to 1 calls over puts out there. So that should tell you about all that paper, only 70 of it was puts. The rest, all calls. And what they were highlighting, again, they do a lot of alerts over there at Trade Alert as well. And What's Trading, if you're a subscriber, you can check those out for yourself. The stock was up about 2.5% when they sent this over this morning. Flurry of activity. They saw a lot of activity in the March 5s to the tune of buyers just lifting offers, sweeping offers left and right from 30 cents all the way up to 35 cents as the stock rally. As the stock continued to rally throughout the day, these calls are now 35-cent bid. Offered at 40, 10,267. Gobbling it up today on the tape. Only about 150 contracts open on the strike. So clearly opening paper. 4,500 going up so far, yeah. And that's on the heels of 6,000 of the Nov 4 calls, which were rolled from October out to November just on Friday. So someone's keeping that paper alive, and 2,000 more of the Nov 4s trade in here today. So interesting paper out here in good old FSM. We don't look at a lot of cheapies a lot, but when the Flow Master has one that's interesting to him, it's probably worth a little bit more attention. Let's go back out here a little bit and see what's been cooking out here in FSM for the better part of the past year. This thing, like a lot of these mining names, has had a bit of a tumultuous road over the past year. This thing was trading, about $7.50, almost $8 back about exactly a year ago. Since then, it's kind of been topsy-turvy, dropping down to $5, bouncing back up to nearly $7, and then kind of taking it on the chin again, back down to about $4.25. And it's kind of been vacillating in this $4.25 to $5.25 range for the better part of the last 6 months. So it's kind of been very range-bound. It seems like someone's betting on that upside is continuing to run. So first question, Uncle Mike, was this you? And then secondly, what do you think of all this call up here in Fortuna Silver Mines?
Well, first off, I can neither confirm nor deny that there was a possibility that it might have been me on this paper. What the heck? No, it was not me. So with that, it was not I. Typically keep my focus on the metals themselves and don't venture out into miners and that type of thing. I'd hate to be in a situation to where if I'm bullish on a metal and the metals go higher, that I'm with a miner and for whatever reason there's a corrupt CEO or there's just not any buyers in it. That would really, I'd be upset about something like that. So there are times that miners can outperform the commodity itself. A lot of times they do, but I still feel more comfortable being in the commodity itself. In terms of this activity, I would agree with you, Mark. I would say this has to just be someone being very bullish. The odds of someone shorting a stock at that price are, I would say, slim and none. So I just think someone's really bullish and buying them some paper on those calls. Whether or not it's part of a bigger strategy, not quite sure, but I would venture to guess that this just looks like someone that really likes the stock, thinks they're about to break out apparently on the range that you just described, and someone's going to be really excited if this thing actually breaks out. And if that breaks out, then that makes me think that silver would break out. So I hope he's right.
Yeah, that looks good for your long-term silver collar, if indeed this guy is correct. And then, of course, if it does come to pass for him, you could contact him and say, hey, let me introduce you to the magic of the collar to protect all these magical gains that you have now made in FSM. I don't know, Tubbinator or Mr. Meatball, any thoughts here on this silver mining act paper that caught the eye of the Flowmaster?
I think it looks like a cheap play as well, but, probably better off for a chartist to kind of see if something's breaking out at this level. Interesting to see that he's been long, because he was rolling some Octobers through November anyway, and by in March, a lot of upside there. I mean, you've got, a year and a half of just almost straight down losses here, 60+%. Why not? We talked about, the market kind of just selling off, but almost kind of quietly, and maybe there's just reason to think. A lot of people might be saying, it's been a really good year, a really good 2 years. Let's take some of these profits, put them in some, less riskier assets. I mean, I don't know about a $4 stock being less risky necessarily, not the best way to play miners, like Mike said, but it may be just a way to kind of roll some capital out. The downside's not huge here for a quarter option. So that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, the stock itself, if the Viceroy were here on the show, he'd be saying the stock itself is an option at this point. There certainly is some truth to that. When you get these things sub $5, usually it seems to be the demarcation. Some people won't go below 10, some people definitely below 5. Some people start to get a little bit of the heebie-jeebies about trading options on a stock like that. But there you go, little Frontera Mines. If you're out there and you think, the Tucson long-term 2-year collar, a little bit too rich but a little bit too long-term for your blood, you want to sling some upside, there you go. Someone else beat you to it out there in good old Frontera Mine. Let's move back to kind of a frequent offender here on the old odd block these days. This is our old friend EWJ. This is the iShares MSCI Japan ETF. Their names are all a mouthful, every single one of them. This one, EWJ, no different. Closing today, 57.66, up about 0.25%. So kind of bucking the downside trend out there. Of course, we were talking before about the big news coming out of the Japan land these days. And why would Japan want an army? They could just call on the big dog, call on us to do all their heavy lifting and, of course, do all their military spending for them. Why would they want that? Of course, I can understand maybe you got a little bit of crazy man in your neighborhood. Maybe you want something to protect yourself, but still, interesting stuff. We'll table that debate for another show as we move on to what was catching our eye out here today. This is the name that does, by the way, about 10,500 contracts a day. Of late, our friend the Rocket Man has been lighting up EWJ. It's been doing a lot more. Today, doing nearly 115,000, pretty even, 1.2 to 1 calls over puts. And I think you'll see why in a moment once we break down the activity that we saw out here. In particular, it was out there in Nove not in the weeklies, but in the big mothership the No 57s. That was lighting it up to the tune of a combo, maybe a straddle, call it what you will out here, or as our friends, the Meatball and Tubby like to call them, maybe a RevCon. There's a stock leg. It just sounds like some sort of crazy neoconservative movement out there. It cracks me up. But what we saw out here were the Nove 57 combo / straddle, call it what you will, lighting it up 45,000 times, trading $1.13 on the calls, and looks like about 33 cents on the puts. Looks like trending toward the offer on the puts, but then again, that's where these kind of executions can be misleading. It's a very tight penny-wide market, so it's no real telling. Just because they lifted a penny-wide offer in a penny-wide market doesn't mean they're actually buying those. So a little bit of interesting thing on the execution. Of course, they're putting up this much size too. They're going to get facilitated. So what they're actually intending may not be on the surface. So on the surface, so you can look at that and say maybe this is indeed a nice little bearish combo there where you're buying the put, selling this call, and of course trading the stock probably against that opening though on both sides, not closing here, purely opening. There's a couple thousand contracts open on each strike. Now, before we get any further, it's also worth noting we have been keeping an eye on EWJ here for a while. This is the name that you remember we talked about him a few times, including probably most recently about a month ago here on the show, back a little more than a month ago, actually. It was September 7th. We saw a size block of 40,000 of the Jan 35 puts going up. Paper just gobbling those up for 4 cents. The OI was not negligible at the time. Today, there's about 40,000 plus still open on that strike, so clearly those puts are still open. In fact, let's see how our friend is doing on those Jan puts. They are at 2 cents, so he's lost 50% of his 4 cent offer that he gobbled up. But then again, I don't think he's playing for pennies here. I think he's playing for, a lot crazier, more aggressive things to happen out here. And again, it's been a crazy time period out here. Let's look back really quickly here on EWJ before we toss it off here a little bit. And they've been moving around quite a bit, but it's been in general a bit of a kind of an inexorable upside run here, dipping as low as about 48 and change back in January, and then pretty much seeing its peak of the year right around now. So despite the fact that we got all sorts of turmoil out there in that neck of the woods, it hasn't really put the dampers on EWJ. Let's start with the Tubinator, because I know he likes EWJ. We talked about it before on the show. What's your thoughts? You put up, before we even get into the paper, let's get into the execution a little bit, because this is obviously your bailiwick. You got this penny-wide prints, doesn't really tell you much about what the hell was going on. What does your spidey sense tell you about what they're putting up here?
These are RevCons. It's a stock loan still. That's too big of a print. That's 4.5 million shares that you've got an institution borrowing from another institution. There's a secondary print on the Nove 60 line, 7,500 times. So now you've got essentially 5.2 million shares changing hands. What is interesting, though, there was I don't know if it was a sweep, but there's 5,300 December 61 calls for 8 cents that appear to have been bought. And I actually find it a bit more interesting than the big 45,000 lot RevCon trade type stuff. That's a bit more telling for me.
You just love saying RevCon. That's what it is. I think that's what it is. It just brings a smile to your face, the old RevCon. Mr. Meatball, is it 3 for 3? Are you on the RevCon train out here in EWJ as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. There's definitely some underlying stock. That was the trade. And then, if you look, this is a lot of how the EWJ trades is actually related to the yen. And at the top of the show, I was talking about the fact that the yen's low and right at a point where, it's either going to pop or it's going to have some sort of concave major sell-off from this level. If that's the case, then you're going to see some... we could actually see some fireworks in AWJ. So this may be somebody's way of setting up some sort of short or long, or, because we talk so much about the reversal and conversion. One of the reasons to do a RevCon is to get long the stock so you can short it and not have to worry about it. It can also work against some other things. So this could be kind of a backdoor play on the yen. It could be, again, Abe got elected over the weekend. That's an important piece of information about Japan. I mean, he's a huge influencer because of, Abenomics, or whatever you want to call it. That's been a huge driver of Japan over the last year. Now, one thing to be aware of is, you think our QE is crazy? The Japanese one-upped our QE. They're allowed to buy equity ETFs. So Japan, the Japanese central bank, I believe, owns a huge portion of the stock market. So for all we know, this is the Japanese central bank engaging in some sort of weird trade. Who knows? But yeah, this is absolutely 100% a play on, a reversal conversion where someone is trying to do something in terms of their physical ownership of the stock.
That would be funny if it was the Japanese government coming in to get themselves a little synthetic underlying to sling against their massive long portfolio that they already got. It's funny, I ran into someone at FIA last week who was spouting some conspiratorial stories like that on the U.S. front, saying that our government has expanded beyond the traditional QE and moved into just loading up on broad market ETFs and things just to help drive this market north, because that, he said, was the only way he could make any intellectual sense out of the protracted rally we've seen. I'll leave the debates about that for places like Zero Hedge and stuff. I thought it was kind of funny that we just brought it up here in the show a little while ago, and Japan actually is doing that. So maybe a little bit of grist for the mill here there. Now, if you're saying to yourself, you know what? That other name we were just talking about, the good old FSM, that was nice, but it was $4.50 or so, a little bit too rich for my blood. What else you got for me? Well, we got you covered today on the Odd Block today. Going to close things out here with Weatherford International PLC, ticker symbol WFT, trading at a much more reasonable, much more cost-effective $3.40 there. So we got you covered. If you got a low budget, then we got you covered here on the block today. This name closing today, like I said, $3.40, off about 4%, so not a great day for them. This name does about 20,000 contracts a day, so not bad for a cheapy name out here. Today doing about 4x that, about 80,000. 6-1 calls over puts, and that should bring you where our last name is here today. Massive block, about 50,000 to start off with, total of 55,000 on the day. Of these weekly expiring on the 3rd, 3 half calls going up for 19 cents. Looks like paper probably lifting an offer. 70,000 open on this strike, which is kind of interesting. So perhaps someone maybe got a little bit aggressive with the comfort call, then is maybe coming back today with the stock leg, perhaps to unwind that. But again, that might be first blush. But then again, you look here and you dig a little bit deeper, you notice that 70K that's open on that strike just traded couple days ago on the 20th when the stock was a little bit higher, though, 350. So 70,000 going up today. Chances are they probably aren't closing it out right now, but we've seen crazier things. It's probably more of a piling out, which means they're going to be somewhere around $1.20 when this bad boy opens tomorrow on the old open interest. Keep an eye on the OI to see exactly what's going on out there as we go out to the old tape, the tail of the tape, to see what's been going on for the past year here in WFT. This thing has been bouncing all over the place. Got as high as nearly $7 back in March of this year. Actually broke $7 very briefly. Kind of pretty much got cut in half since then, off about 50% from that lofty high. And someone here, this is indeed the case, perhaps betting that this explosion to the upside is not done. It shall happen again. If that is indeed the case, or the stock leg perhaps being a counterpoint to that. Let's go to the Tubinator. Let's see if we can shock him out of his funk here. If he can get excited about net. If this other paper on Friday is related, and it probably is, about 120,000 of these bad boys going up over a couple of days. Mr. Tubinator, what's your thoughts here? I know the other one was a little bit too rich for your blood. Now we got you $3.40 WFT, sir. What's your thoughts?
I'm going to head back down to the trading floor and become a broker again. Who's trading 50,000 lots of $3 stocks?
I knew all this paper would really make you hunger for the old days again.
It's not often to see a company with 30,000 employees trading $3.48 and this kind of option flow. Honestly, no clue here. And probably one I may do some investigating for and have an answer for you on Thursday. But this looks really odd for the last couple of days.
Well, there's a reason why we call it the odd block, sir. It does come across our radar every now and then. Mr. Meatball, any thoughts here on this even cheaper Weatherford International? And it's kind of mystery, massive blocks. $1.20 in 2 sessions here on a $3.40 name.
Yeah, that's a strange one, right? It's that is really, really weird. Why? I'm just kind of digging in here a little bit. Maybe you just think WFT is going to kill it. But at that price, why not just buy? This is one of those why not just buy the stock trades, right? And part of it's closing, but it looks like there's some adding in there. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's odd. Well, I will say
either way, it's odd, because if it's closing, they just opened it on Friday, so they let it go literally over the weekend.
Probably additive.
It's got to be additive. Yeah.
But why not just buy the stock?
There you go. You've been you're channeling the mystery that has plagued people like the Viceroy for many, many years at this point. Yeah, you buy it on margin, you can still do all right. Not quite 19 cents, but you're getting there. Let us know your thoughts. Do you guys trade options on some of these cheapy names? I'm guessing some of you probably do. Hit us up. Let us know why. Maybe you got some clues or some insight into why you think 120,000 contracts flying fast and furious on this $3 name in just 2 sessions. Meanwhile, though, we got to keep on rolling. It's Monday. Means it's time for you crazies to take the wheel. It's time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's get to the mail block, get to the questions you guys ask us and we ask you. Let's pay off some of the ones we asked you from last week. First, we asked you, what's the big names you're looking forward to trading? We gave you, during earnings season, Tesla, Amazon, Apple, or the old Google, a.k.a. Alphabet. Ebbed and flowed for a while there last week. Ended up Amazon topping the list, 38%. Coming off, it was looking higher earlier in the week. 26% for Tesla. 21% for Apple, only 15% for the old Googles, aka Alphabet. I'm with you guys from last week. I think that name change kind of lost some of the sexiness around it, some of the luster around Apple, or should I say Alphabet. See, even I did it. It's kind of gone. But what's really interesting, what I really wanted to get to, is we kind of towards the end of the week, we kind of threw out a throwaway thing. We were recording a lot of shows here in the studio last week, including a live options boot camp with our friends over there at NASDAQ and Market Taker and a couple others. And we got into an interesting debate about after hours trading in the options market and whether it should exist or not. So we threw out a quick little poll for like an hour or so, and people just responded en masse. It almost got as many responses in just like span of a few hours as some of our other ones get for a whole week. Because people clearly have an interest in this, and you guys overwhelmingly, 71%, said you want it. You want some sort of after hours in the stock. So that got us to our question this week, a little bit of a related one. We said, you guys really, really want to trade your options after hours. So the question now, the big question, the devil's in the details of this thing, is how? How do we make this happen? What is the best way to make this happen? We gave you guys some choices. We also left it open for your suggestions, because this is one of those things where we kind of welcome your suggestions. It's the devil's in the details here. We gave you, there's a couple of ways we've heard this bandied about. The first way is to do it as a limited pilot for earnings season only. So you kind of do the names that are popping off for earnings season that week. So maybe the week before or the week after or something like that, a couple of weeks span, and then you roll on to the next name. So it'd be kind of a rolling pilot in that sense. Or you limit it to kind of just the top names that are deep and liquid. In the case of the options market, it's probably about 20 names. You're talking about your Amazons. And actually, if you knock out some of the indices and things that don't really have earnings, it's going to be even a smaller list and take out the VIXs and stuff. But of course, maybe you want to trade those after hours. Those could probably work as well. This doesn't have to be just for earnings. It could just be after hours in general. Or we kind of keep it kind of like the way the stock market is now, kind of like a nice basic limit order book. You work your order, you get filled, you're happy or you're sad, and you move on to the next thing. Or you got some other ideas out there. This is an interesting one. As I said before, this is kind of, people are really divided on this issue. And it's one of the few things where there's reasonable arguments to be had on both sides of the fence. Let's start with the Tubinator. What do you think? Well, first off, do you have a choice in this? And then B, what do you think our audience is voting for?
I'm going to say the audience is going to say yes. I personally am against it unless we just open the window for, let's say, 45 minutes, maybe 90 minutes after the close or before the opening. I think there's so much risk for the retail trader to get in trouble here. You're just not going to have the liquidity in the markets that you want. There are times that I got up in the morning and went, oh, great, stock's up or down $10, and by the time they opened, it's up or down $5. I think the pain's going to outweigh the gain on this one, and unless we talked about just a short period or a window, like after the close to the conference call or something about an earnings, I would be against it. I think otherwise.
Interesting. So you don't have a vote, and if it did happen, how would you like to see it happen? Pilot, top names, or basic limit, or you, like you said, just like a quick 25-minute window. That's what you want. Yeah,
well, I think I'd open it up. I don't think I'd limit it because I don't like that idea at all. But if the market were to, let's say, we had closed at 3 and then reopened at 3:15 till 4:30, and just had something like that, you probably would see very, very little activity whatsoever, unless you were surrounding certain earnings. And I do believe there would be an appetite for that hour and a half for sure.
All right, interesting stuff, Mr. Meatball. I think you kind of you are on the anti-camp. So does the overwhelming response from the listeners make you change your mind at all? And if one of these is going to happen, how would you like to see it unfold?
I mean, again, this is a case where they don't know what they want. They think they want this, and they don't. It would cost them more, and then it would cost them more than you would expect. That's my guess. And so I don't think it's as good for the customer as they think. The markets would be really wide. It'd be hard to get anything done. Things would be illiquid. The people that trade it would not be happy. It would be a mess. And so I don't think that I don't think it fits. That's just me. But for those of you that insist, that say, oh, I'm smarter than that, I don't need Mark Sebastian to tell me what's good for me, that jerk. My response, let me look here. I would top names only. I think you have to go top names only. That's the only way you might get some sort of thing, or maybe a basic limit order book might be the other way. I don't think I don't think there's any other that's going to work. I'd be looking at maybe you could do a basic limit order, except that would probably only get filled at the worst time.
Yeah,
and top names you might be able to get something. Yeah, but top names you might be able to get something. But here's the problem. SPX is a top name, and it trades overnight, and there's no volume. What are you going to get out of Amazon and Apple? They tried to do those VIX indexes. They couldn't make anything kind of stick there. I just don't see how it would work. You could maybe Apple or some of those huge names, you could find a way to make something happen, but I just don't see it.
And Uncle Mike, let's see if you can. Are you going to join the naysaying crowd here, or are you gonna side with our audience, or perhaps our audience may be wanting something they don't really want at the end of the day, or they don't really need? What are your thoughts? And then also, where do you fall on, or maybe you have a new suggestion we haven't thought of yet?
Well, Mark and I talked about this a little bit on the show last week, and so I like trading very liquid names. For anyone that's listened to this show at least twice understands that. And when I look when I watch a Fed announcement, for example, as anyone would during the day, you'll notice that on SPY options, the name that I look at and live and breathe, quite frankly, bid-ask spreads are 9 miles wide during the first couple minutes after a Fed announcement, and sometimes a lot longer. And so if we can't get bid-ask spreads during regular trading hours to be more narrow on SPY, then I have a hard time believing that we can do it when Delta Airlines has earnings. I don't know why I just thought of that name, but nonetheless, I don't see it happening if we have that kind of a wide spread on SPY. Now, if we did do the limit order book, I mean, there's something to that, but let's be honest, most likely you're going to get a bad fill on it if we have a wide spread. I mean, I personally, occasionally, I'll put in limit orders on SPY options during a Fed announcement in case I get lucky. If something goes way down, then goes way up. But they never fill. Just kind of for the fun of it, to amuse myself. It's kind of like putting out a limit order to buy Apple at $30 a share. Hey, you never know. Maybe we could have a flash crash again and I can get filled. Who knows? But in reality, I think that if you're looking for liquidity, then I just have a hard time believing that it could happen on a single stock with the options on it after market, when not the big money is not trading after market, and you have that problem during the market on a name like SPY. So I just don't see how it could work the more I think about it. I'd like it to work. I'd like to see it. I'd like it to happen. But evidence from my experience of looking at much bigger names than Apple, Google, Amazon, or any of those guys says that I don't think it would work.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think the debate is worth having. I think particularly around, we get this question all the time, particularly this time of year, which is earnings season. So maybe some sort of limited pilot around earnings season. I'm with Tubby. I kind of cringe a little bit when I hear limiting things, but then, maybe that's the only way it can work and people can get their hands around. Because at the end of the day, 20 names account for 50% of the volume in the option space. So if we limit it to most of those names, we can get a pretty fair consensus of what at least half of the options business, if they can do it, if they can make it happen, if it's interesting. And of course, earnings season provides that driver. So maybe we do it around earnings, or we back it off, and we try it. Maybe we try some different ways, but I'm still of the inclination that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes more is better than less. We were debating before, Mr. So you got time for a couple more here. We got Flowmaster chiming in. I said, I think it was Uncle Mike who was slinging all those calls out there in FSM. Flowmaster saying, I hope he was. 10,000 was bought, 33% average price. Finished the day with a handful, actually trading 39 cents. They traded higher than that, obviously. So interesting stuff. So Mr. Flowmaster, cheering along for you, Mr. Uncle Mike, that he was hoping that was you with that well-timed scoop out there in FSM. Let's see, quick one here, quick couple if we got time. Let's see. I don't know what this guy's asking about with Al. John Hopkins wants to know if I was inquiring if Al Sherban's spreadsheets from his book, How to Price and Trade Options, is still available. It is not on his Wiley website anymore, and I cannot get it from my O'Reilly subscription service either. I have developed my own Kelly spreadsheet, but I would like an experts to see if I am right. Mine works okay. It has increased my winning trades greatly. Thanks. I realize this is not part of your usual discussion. Many apologies. No, it's not. Al, to my knowledge, has never been on this show before, even on our network. I like Al, good guy. He just hasn't been on. I'm not familiar with his website or with his spreadsheet. I'm assuming you mean something along the lines of the Kelly criterion. That's what you're talking about. But yeah, if you can't find it from there, I recommend maybe searching. I forgot his handle on Twitter. He's on Twitter. Go find him on Twitter and just DM him and say, hey, can I get a copy of your spreadsheet? I'm sure he'd be happy to give it to you. That's probably the easiest way. These days in the social media age, that is the easiest way to track folks down. But unfortunately, we don't have it. We don't have it on our website. I'm not really sure what you're referring to, but good question nonetheless. All right, let's move on. We got a couple more minutes. Let's check out what's coming up the rest of the week. It's time for Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. You guys know what time it is. Time to check out what's coming up this week. It's a hot one. It's a good one for earnings season out there. This is inject a little micro life, and I'll miss all this macro madness going on out there. I mentioned tomorrow we got Mickey D's for the open. Also got the old former stealth apple, Chipotle. They wound up today. Ticker symbol, of course, CMG. They closed today, 320.5. They actually have earnings after the close tomorrow. They're off about 1.5% or 1.3% today. They're pricing in about $20, so about a 6.25%, straddle out there for this one, which isn't too bad given how juicy some of those straddles have been of late. We'll see how Chipotle fares later this week. We also got Thursday. I said Thursday's the big day. Twitter, Amazon, the Googs, Microsoft, all that fun stuff. So Thursday's the day. I know a lot of you guys are holding out for hope for that. So let's go around the horn. Let's start with the man about town, soon-to-be CIA analyst, the Tubbinator. Mr. Tubbinator, what are you watching this week, sir?
Definitely Sherwin-Williams in the morning. For some reason or other, Sherwin-Williams has kind of been a great home indicator. New home builds and such, and that stock has just been on a tear since 2009. That's going to be a big number tomorrow. AMD, one of my favorite stocks. I've been following Lisa Su for the last 2 or 3 years with this company in the turnaround. There are some negative analysts on it right now. Citigroup calling it about 60% lower, about $5 a share at some point. Thinking Intel is going to blow them away. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on for sure. And I cannot wait for Thursday afternoon for the show, if we're doing it, if I'm on it. Because Mark and I talked about, was maybe 2 weeks ago, Mr. Greasy Meatball, about how did we miss the boat on Amazon? All the way down to 940, it's back over 1,000. Well, it's back down to 965. So another chance to get in there. I love that name. That's probably the one I'm going to be watching most this week.
There you go. The market giveth, the market taketh away, and now it giveth again. So there you go. Mr. Meatball, are you waiting to dive in and scoop some juice out there in Amazon this week?
Yeah, I mean, that's been an interesting one. I mean, talk about breakout lower. It broke out higher, it's breaking out lower. I mean, it's taken it 4 days to get from a high of 1022 down to a low of 962. So it made a $60 move in 4 days. That's not bad. That's a nice 6% drop. Not unimpressive. Yeah, we got a lot of earnings on the tape. We've got ECB on Thursday, I believe. We've got Catalonia. We've got be interesting to see what the yen does, and then of course, any day now we've got the Federal Reserve, and any day we're going to have some sort of tax reform. There's also some sort of Obamacare deal that may come out. If there's a bipartisan deal, I think markets will rally because that shows that Washington can sign legislation, which so far they've been unable to. So, but yeah, Amazon broke below it's closed below the 50-day moving average. So look out there. And then finally IBM. Also great day, and then just kind of a poof sell-off today. I'm really interested in seeing if we can go red 2 days in a row. And if we can, then that will raise my eyebrows.
That will do it. Like I mentioned in the final closings here, it looks like VIX did actually tick over 11. I was premature when I said it didn't make 11. 11:07 here to wind out the day. And last but not least, Mr. Uncle Mike, what are you watching the rest of this week, sir?
Well, I'm really excited. I'm like Mr. Tubby. I'm excited about the Thursday show as well. It's always a ton of fun to have a show when you can talk about a couple of earnings announcements that happen right while you're on the show. So that's going to be a good time. Make sure you tune in for that live if you can. And just pretty much everything that Mark had said, and as well as Tubby. We got earnings. We have some macro events. And excited to see what's happening. And there's a good chance I might be saying my trademark saying come Thursday or Monday.
All right, I've got to tell you guys, there's no show on Thursday, so look for the best stuff. I'm just kidding. Of course, we couldn't do that to you. Thursday's the fun day, the day a lot of you guys live for, a lot of big names popping off. We'll be there to break it all down for you live. So if you can't join us live, I know live you like to do so on earnings days, then check us out over there via the old Mixlers. You know how to find us. Of course, you can't make it. You always get the podcast after the fact. We love you guys too, but you know a lot of you hardcores like to sink your teeth into the minute it's happening. So you can join us on Thursday and help us do just that. But before we go, that music means we're done, but not quite. A little bit left. That means it's time to go back around the horn, see what the heck everybody's up to. Let's start with the guy we just talked to, Mr. Uncle Mike, who's sitting on all the profits from all those silver calls. What is coming up in the land of Uncle Mike, and how goes the SKU index, or I should say not SKU index, the SKU fund. SKU index, somebody else says that.
Exciting things are happening in the SKU fund. If you are looking for something that's a little bit more exciting than a CD, but still has nearly equal the principal protection, feel free to contact me at 312-212-3531 or shoot me an email at mtosaw@rcmfs.com.
There you go. Hit the man up, the SKU Meister, as all the cool kids are calling him, or at least me right now are calling him. Hit him up. You too can have a little fun in some SKU. Why sit in cash when you could sit in SKU? There you go. I'm doing your marketing for you right there, sir. And speaking of all things fun, what's cooking? What's fun in the land of the pit, sir?
You know, tomorrow Andrew and with me as an assist, we're going to do a little credit and debit spread piece of our masterclass from a while back. We had recording go bad, so we have to re-record it. We're going to open it up, so if you can attend live, you can attend for free and see what that masterclass is like. Go to optionpit.com/blog to sign up, and you can check out the blog.
Recording's going bad. If only I had some experience with such things. Yes, I feel your pain, sir. Check it out, optionpit.com to learn more. This time, hopefully, it won't go bad. And last but not least, Mr. Tubinator, when are you joining the CIA/NSA?
Hopefully this week, Mark. But, everything's top secret on that. But I really hope we can give some credence to my existence on Thursday's show. And in the meantime, I'm always there. If anyone has any questions, at SoxFan Matt B on the old Twitter feed. And looking forward to a little fun earnings week trading.
There you go. Hit the man up. Ask him why he likes RevCon so much. I think it's just because it's so fun to say. And on behalf of the Tubinator and the greasiest of meatballs and Uncle Mike, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience for downloading, streaming, subscribing, all the fun stuff that you do, sending us questions. Make sure you tune in on Thursday. I know it's a big day. A lot of you guys like to enjoy it. Join us live if you can. It's always fun in there. And we'll see you then for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.